Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Today, I've got Herman Yang with us today, and we are going to be talking about stuff revolving around divorces. But I want to welcome you, Herman.
I appreciate the warm welcome, Alice, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I know you do a lot of great work for your clients and for the community out there in terms of arbitration negotiation. You know, if everybody has talked to you before they do a divorce, in terms of going into the legal part of everything and going into court, I think they would save a lot of time, aggravation, and money. So. Thanks for all that you do out there.
Thanks, Herman. So tell my listeners what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I run a financial planning practice. I'm here in Castro Valley. My office here in Castro Valley. I live here as well. What does financial planning mean, or what does a financial advisor do? Well, I solve problems. I take the time to understand where my clients are at today, more importantly, where they want to be at in the future financially, and I help them create a plan to bridge that gap.
Wonderful. And so the reason why I invited Herman on the show today is because we met and had a meeting to get to know one another. And Herman does a lot of, he's got a lot of conversations with people who are getting a divorce. And maybe someone wants to keep the house because they're emotionally really invested in the house. Perhaps they've got small children. They want to create stability for the kids during this time of instability, which is the divorce transition and the earlier years in the divorce. And so I really wanted Herman to come on the show and talk about what those conversations look like, the questions that he asks the people who are trying to keep the house, because the people don't always have the means to be able to keep the house, but they are so emotionally attached to it that it's difficult to, get them to understand that maybe it's not the correct financial decision to make to try to keep the house. So Herman, yeah, I'd love for you to start the conversation by talking about the clients that you see who are in this predicament.
Yeah, so it's a pretty common case that I work with a decent amount of divorcees or people about to go into divorce or people who have just wrapped up their divorce. And it's unfortunate, but it's a new beginning with a lot of changes, a lot of financial changes to say the least. So there's a variety of conversations I have kind of in this field. But I'll go on that specific topic of, if a couple is trying to figure out if who's going to stay in the home, if they're going to sell the home, and how they will do it. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, if I raised my family in this house and put all my blood, sweat, and tears into making it my home, I would never want to part from it. If I can afford living in the house, then I will keep it.
Right.
And I think most people would agree with that. But let's talk about what it means to be able to afford staying in the home. So usually during these conversations, there's a lot of emotional attachment to the house rather than logical. So my clients, when I'm having these conversations, they are looking for any way possible to afford keeping the house. Let's go into an example. So say if you stay in this house and you pay out your ex for their share of the house, you'll most likely take out a new mortgage. And say if that house payment is $4,000 a month, and let's say that you get paid 5,000 or even 4,500 a month, you might be thinking, okay, I can make this work. Um, the house payment is a little less than how much I make. Let's be honest. If you only have $500 to $1,000 left over after your house payment, there is no way you can afford it, factoring utilities, groceries, and gas.
I mean, isn't it supposed to be like a third of what you make should be the house payment?
That is a standard rule of thumb. Your housing costs shouldn't be more than a third of your income. And that's, nowadays that can be pretty tough, especially in California. Uh, but let's run through a scenario, a more realistic scenario that I run into. And this is like, I get this type of scenario pretty more often. So say like if you want to keep your house, your payment is $4,000. Your paycheck, and say your paycheck is $6,000. Well, Alice, how much is the bills to keep the lights on? Maybe like $300 to $400 a month. How much are your groceries to keep food on the table for your family? Maybe 700 to 900, right? How much is gas and insurance to get to and from work? Maybe like 300 to 500, depending on how much you drive. So if you're telling me that you bring home $6,000 a month, your house payment is 4,000, your basic bills and food is $1,500. Then you have about $500 left over. That's doable, right? Well, if something in the house breaks, that $500 is gone. If you get into a car accident, that $500 is gone. If you need new tires, that $500 is gone. You want to put your kids into sports, that five extra money is gone. Or Alice, what if you would just want to enjoy life?
Right.
That extra money is gone. So yes, you might be able to afford to stay in this house, but you won't have the money to go out with your friends, take your kids, or even yourself on vacation. You won't be able to save an additional dime for retirement and might have to work forever. And if you lose your job and don't find another one quick, you'll have to sell the house anyways. Is this the lifestyle you want?
Right.
So,
So what are these like beyond sort of helping them see the budget? Because I'm understanding that probably you go line by line and ask them like what are the costs of these different things so that you can actually see in black and white how much they'll be paying on a monthly basis versus how much is coming in, right? So that they can understand whether it's actually affordable. But what are some of the other questions that you might be asking them so that they can get to the understanding on their own? Because it's very difficult to convince someone otherwise if they're emotionally really attached to the thing that they want. Then every argument sort of is not listened to, right? It's like, nope, don't hear that, don't hear that, don't hear that. Oh, I don't hear the fact that you're telling me I can't afford it. Don't hear that either. Because, like, I don't want to hear it, right? Because I really want to somehow make it work. So, what are some of the questions that you are asking clients when they are really, really adamant that you help them figure out how to keep the house?
yeah, yeah. So some of the or some of the pushback or some of the comments in the discussion that I usually have, they'll say things like, "Oh, I mean, I'll figure it out. My parents can help me out." Well, let's have a discussion around that. So most likely, your new mortgage is going to be 30 years. Will your parents help you out for 30 years? What if they don't live for another 30 years? And even if they do, they have to take away from their retirement check that they've worked their entire lives for to enjoy their retirement. Is that what you want? Um, Another one I get sometimes is, well, it'll be tough in the beginning, but I'll make more money. I'll make it work. What if you don't make more money? And if you don't, you're going to be racking up credit card debt to try to keep up with your expenses. Eventually, you're going to be drowning in that debt and forced to sell the house anyways. Um, I get like a 3 to 5% raise every year. I'll make it work. Things will get better over time. Well, that's great. Some companies don't even give raises at all unless you get a promotion. But unfortunately, whether or not you get a raise, the cost of living goes up every single year. Your groceries, your gas, your utilities. You see the dollar menu at McDonald's? Now it's a $3 menu. So unless you're getting huge raises for multiple years, you won't be able to afford staying in this home.
Now, do you ever get people who say, "Okay, fine. If it doesn't work this way, how about I try to get my soon-to-be ex to stay on the mortgage, and we can just be co-owners, and I'll just live here, and then we'll eventually sell it in 5 or 10 years." Does that scenario come up for you with your clients ever?
That that is a suggestion that gets pretty like that's pretty gets pretty shot gets shot down pretty quickly. I'd say, from my experience, the most immediate thing that divorcees want to do is separate from each other. So it's a suggestion, but after we have a discussion around it, do you want to continue living with your ex?
Well, it's not so much that they want
Yeah.
to live together. One of them moves out,
Hmm.
and the other one stays in with the children, right? So that comes
Hmm.
across my desk once in a while where someone says, "Well, we can't afford to buy each other out, but both of us feel really strongly to keep the house for the kids." And sometimes they might even want to gift it to their kids when the kids grow up. But the
Hmm.
other parent moves out.
Hmm.
But there's inherent issues with that as well.
Hmm.
I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. That specific scenario I don't run into too often, because it's. But let me think about it. If I were to run into that scenario, Um, so if the both the parents, even though they're divorcing, they want to keep their kids in the house, and then one parent will stay in the house.
Yes.
Um, it would have to have a couple things line up for that to work.
What are
The,
those things?
the parent. So the parent that is leaving the house, he or she would find a way to get bought out, or at least get the fair share of the house. If they agree to stay co-owners, then that parent that is leaving the house must be able to have a decent amount of assets on their own to be able to support themselves, without the buyout. And if they start renting elsewhere, um, then if they start renting elsewhere and they don't get any fair share of the house to help pay for that, then that can cause a lot of animosity over time, and then more trouble over time, and might even force them to sell the house later on anyways. And most of the time these houses are not paid off. So if that spouse that moves out, they have to pay for their new home, but also pay for their share of the existing home. That's most people are not in that blessed situation to be able to afford all that, and nor do they want to, even if they can.
Right.
So,
Or even
um,
like there's two ways, but neither way is really good. There's the scenario that you pointed out, which is the out spouse is continuing to pay their half of the mortgage. And there's the other scenario that is fair, but it doesn't feel good, where the spouse staying in the house pays the full mortgage while retaining only half ownership. And
mhm,
the justification for that is that they're paying for rent for the half that they do not own,
mhm,
right? They're paying rent to their ex. And so
yeah,
that also doesn't work a lot of times because the spouse staying in the house can't afford the full mortgage because
mhm,
it's just too huge, right? A lot of times, though, I run into these because people do not want to get rid of the mortgage that's at 2.9%. and jump up to 7%. And they say, well, if it's going to be 7%, I can't possibly afford that. So they're doing whatever
Mm-hmm.
they can to keep it at 2.9%. But there are
Mm-hmm.
inherent risks, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
they can still be liable. The out spouse is still liable. Their name is still on there. If the spouse staying at home suddenly can't pay because
Mm-hmm.
they're injured or something happens, now the spouse who doesn't live there is going to have to pay for the full mortgage as long as the person living there can't.
Mm-hmm.
Might not
Mm-hmm.
be easy to say, oh, if you can't pay, just move out because maybe they're disabled now and they can't move out, right? And so now you had to.
Yeah.
So there's all of these risks that are inherent in keeping a house together beyond the marriage as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And just having a discussion around those risks. For the latter example you used, the spouse that lives in the house say that they can't pay the mortgage because of some things, financial things come up, but if the out spouse's name is still on the mortgage, then they're entitled to know that. And and if that mortgage is not being paid, it's going to hurt both of their credits. And then the out spouse, if they're in a better, if they're going to cover for that mortgage while the in spouse is staying, that they're not going to be happy with that. And if that continues to go on, they're going to force that sale eventually at that time, anyways. And if they force that sale, if they force that sale at that time, money will probably be running low for the in spouse. No money can be so not much money can be used to fix up the house for the sale. And if you don't have enough money to fix up the house for sale, are you going to get less buyers or more buyers? Probably less. And if you get less buyers, are you going to get a higher price or lower price? Probably less. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're selling the house for hundreds of thousands of dollars less than its value.
Right.
Is that, and then just having that discussion with the client, is that what you want?
So, slightly, okay, so in the same vein, I still want to continue the conversation around, people who are getting divorced. But if you have a client that comes to you for financial advice, either during the divorce or just after a divorce, what are some of the things that they should be thinking about in terms of financial health and planning?
Yeah. So I can speak on after the divorce. So after the divorce, usually, if usually like if you are the spouse that earned less, you are left with a lump sum and either alimony for a certain time period. At this time, it's like this is a really really crucial time to look at everything, look at your finances, take some time to really map out your goals, and mapping out your budget, income and expenses, and what you have on the table, and then relook at everything. Really relook at everything. When do you want to retire? What is your 5 year goal? What is your 10 year goal? What is your 15 year goal? How much income you make, how much you have how much is your expenses, how much you have left over, and really map out what is still realistic in terms of all the goals that you've had before versus having and making the proper changes to those same goals. Whether it's like you were planning on funding your kids college, whether you're funding your kids college fully, we want to relook at that. Whether you decided you wanted to retire at a certain age, we want to make sure we relook at that now. Or if, say, if you were planning on buying a vacation home, or in a couple years, we want to relook at that now to see what your situation is like and what's realistic for the future. This can be a lot at first. This can be a lot. Uh, and that's why it's always good to work with a financial professional to have that discussion around what's realistic and what's not.
Yeah, so I want to help people navigate the whole like financial advisor because I know there's a whole like spectrum of people who do financial advising, and some people have minimums and some people don't, and some people are just coaches. So for someone who's never worked with a financial advisor before and they don't know whether they're supposed to have $1 million or $10 million, or do I have to have assets? Can you sort of talk a little bit about that spectrum, where you fall in that spectrum of like who you work with and who they should be looking for based on like what their minimums are?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of financial planners across the board. Different financial advisors focus on different areas. Some might only focus on retirement planning. Some might only focus on 401k. Some might only focus on business owners. So it's important to make sure that when you're looking to speak with an advisor, check, just always have an initial conversation and grab and have a and then during that initial conversation, initial meeting, you should have a good feel on what type of area that the financial advisor specializes in. Some people do have a minimum. Some people they won't talk to you unless you have $1 million or 100,000, 250. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's people that choose to work with like a less want to work with less people so they can just manage some of the bigger clients. Me personally, I have a philosophy in my practice. I don't ever want to turn down a single person who is a good person and is open to the idea of planning. So I don't have a minimum. As long as you're open to the idea of planning and you're a good person, then we should be able to work together.
Okay. And so it sounds like, let's say if I were coming out of a divorce and I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm losing everything that I built myself up until this point because we're splitting everything and X, Y, and Z. And so let's say I'm coming out of it. I've got small kids. I barely have enough money to pay the mortgage because now I'm trying to buy out my spouse. So if someone were to say to me in that moment, hey, Alice, maybe you should go talk to a financial advisor, if my feeling is why I have no money to like financially advise me on, like why should someone like myself in this scenario speak to a financial advisor if I feel like I don't have anything? Not only do I have no assets, I hardly have an income and I can barely pay my bills. Why should I go speak to a financial advisor? And does it cost money to even do a consult?
Yeah. So there is for me there is no cost for initial consult. For most advisors, there's no cost for initial consult as well. Um, but in terms of yeah, why would you still speak to this financial advisor if there's no cost? It doesn't hurt to have a conversation, and even just having that initial conversation, most advisors, I would like to think, would be able to give you a lot of direction and clarity on really just helping you one regroup your finances, take some time to really see okay what's going on. Sometimes people might think that yeah, like I got my backs against the wall in terms of income and expenses. I don't have any additional money to be able to be managed. But sometimes there might be some opportunities where the advisor can work with you for some specific accounts. But at the same time, I think the most valuable thing is just having an advisor help you regroup at that time and really see how everything is, how all your finances are laid out. And then eventually, and for me, as long as you're open to the idea of planning, for all my clients, if you're open to the idea of planning, we're going to get you to a place where you're going to be in a better financial situation. You're going to have more money saved, and it'll be a mutual relationship where there I'll be able to help manage your money as well as we accumulate over time.
And so if I show up and I'm fresh out of a divorce and I say or I feel like I don't really understand budgeting, I don't understand how to manage my finances, is a financial advisor the person I need to be seeking out, or is that more like a financial coach, or like is there another professional, or are you the right person for me to go to if I feel like I don't even know how to create a household budget?
Absolutely, I'm the person to talk to for that. Although it is a two-way street, I'm always going to have homework to do for my clients. I'm going to but a lot of my meetings, especially my initial meetings, it's a lot of teaching, a lot of educating. I tell you how to have a proper budget. What are the proportions that you're spending compared to your income? But at the same time, yeah, like I said, it's a two-way street. I'm going to leave them with homework to do on their own. And if they do their homework and we take it back to the table, then it's going to be a really good working relationship. But if they don't do the homework, I think this do their homework. This falls into the category of not open to the idea of planning, and that's where that's like the limitation of how I can help them at that point.
Got
So
it. And I'm just curious, especially because if there are people who are not familiar with doing budgets and whatnot, is the homework like accessible? If I'm like, I don't really understand finances, I don't know what I'm doing, is it easy for me to do the homework, or is it going to overwhelm me because I'm already feeling like I don't really know what I'm doing? Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, it's always gonna. It's I would say the initial homework, in terms of budgeting, it should be easy for most people. I like to compare it to like if you're hiring a fitness trainer, the first step is stepping on the scale.
Right.
So the first step is just maybe just logging into your bank account and looking at the numbers and writing it down.
Got it. Got it. So you kind of break it down so it becomes more digestible, especially for someone who is overwhelmed by the thought of finances because they're not familiar with like how it all works. Or maybe they used to know it, but they've been in a marriage for 25 years. They haven't touched it in 25 years, and suddenly they're diving back in, and it might feel overwhelming and intimidating.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I try to my best to make it as digestible as possible. Like I said, stepping on the scale. That's step one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Herman. This has been super helpful, and hopefully, my listeners who are going through a divorce, maybe wanting to keep the house or trying to figure out finances post divorce, hopefully, this is really helpful information. And if anyone would like to work with you, Herman, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so I'll drop my calendar. I'll share with you my Calendly link for like to schedule a 15-minute conversation, 15-minute phone call. Does not cost any money to have a conversation with me. So if anybody would like some guidance or if any of this information was somewhat relatable, I'd be happy to have a conversation. See if I can help.
Great. Thank you. So, listeners, we'll drop that Calendly link into the show notes. So, if you're interested in setting up a free consultation with Herman, go ahead and check the show notes for the link. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Herman.
Yeah, thank you, Alice, for having me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, listeners, for joining into another episode of Negotiation with Alice.